Yeah, I'm from Cardno. We've got a 70-year history for around the globe. We originated in Brisbane, Australia, and that's where our headquarters are. We're a leading provider and a trusted partner specialised in infrastructure environmental solutions. I'm part of the global technology team and the digital strategy team. I'm one of the technical leaders, where we're continuing to mature our digital engineering solutions to better leverage technology and solutions for our clients. There's a bit of a spatial wall of mystery that sort of we identified at Cardno, and probably everybody has sort of realised this as well. But there's clearly that there's a wall of mystery that can exist between information, required formats, data sets, and databases when communicating graphically and spatial data across departments and organisations. This can be said the same for technology, especially software platforms, user disciplines, historic methods of producing projects, and a lot of organisations, a lot of teams actually holding on to their historical data. And that kind of leaves the BIM and GIS worlds in little silos. So in recent years, there's been a growing trend to actually bring a lot of these platforms and technologies together. And one of those things has obviously been identified by Jack and sort of bringing together the GIS and BIM technologies, and sort of bringing, somebody like Esri and Autodesk together to sort of help, realise what a project lifecycle is actually all about. And what we're actually seeing is sort of optimized designs, accelerated project approvals, reduced costs, smarter cities, and more resilient infrastructure. So for us at Cardno, we identified a couple of challenges that we needed to address as a whole. So how do we effectively communicate our design intent with various project stakeholders? And then how do we actually increase the interoperability throughout our organisation and business units? We identified 7 aspects. I won't go through them all. I've got a session this afternoon that we can sort of drill into a little bit more detail. But we sort of needed to understand what each of these meant, and sort of as part of going through this, we also identified what each of these needed to be. So some of them, sort of the common data environment, making sure that everything is consumable, making sure it's all centralized. It doesn't really matter about the platform or where the data comes from, but just as long as it's structured and looked after. Partnerships, I think, are key. Each individual doesn't know sort of what exists out in the world, so consume what you can from Autodesk, consume what you can from Esri. The people around you are key as well. Also understanding sort of what that infrastructure design life cycle is actually all about. We've probably all seen those 2 big circles, how they're all coming together now, and how there's a little link. So we need to understand what happens, 1 on the project life cycle, but 2 on the data life cycle. So just got a couple of little projects here on sort of how we've actually utilised a lot of this information. One's an infrastructure project that is still, I think, just starting construction in Brisbane. We're part of a joint venture on that team, but sort of that they came together and sort of realised that we need to understand digital engineering a lot better. How do we utilise the data that we're consuming, and making sure that we only use the data once, or sort of we use the data more times, but we only consume it sort of once, and there's a single point of truth. Sort of with bringing all this data together. Sorry, I'll start the video instead. Bringing all this data together meant that, sort of it was outlined in the BIM management plan, sort of how we're actually to bring all this together. This is a short video from Queensland Transport. So what it sort of shows is sort of the amount of information that actually goes into a working model. This is what the guys use out on site. This is what the design team uses to sort of verify their design, get buy-in from the clients and everything as well. But there's so much rich information. It's all the non-graphical stuff that is really rich in sort of delivering these types of projects. There's asset information, there's materials, there's sizing of things and everything. And one of the most important ones is the clash detection. Building that digital twin means that there's no 2 pipes that are going to crash into each other. there's no barrier walls that are sort of going to crash into each other and those sorts of things. Probably a wrong pun to use on a road infrastructure. Wrong button. So one of the other ones is a utility. Sorry, breaking somebody's computer as well. One is a utilities piece of work that we did up the Sunshine Coast in Australia as well. Unfortunately, they took over a former golf course, and they're sort of starting to build a commercial centre, a little bit of residential retail. But what they wanted to do as part of this project is really start develop that smart city, understand what they can actually get out of their consultants, how they can actually bring all this data together, how they can actually be smarter about the construction process and everything. But they also took into consideration what they were going to use all that data for, how they were going to sort of consume data and information for the asset and for the maintenance and everything as well. So we were lucky enough to sort of work on sort of the utility side of things, and sort of the utility design and bringing all of that together. So this was one of our models. We use sort of some of the Autodesk products, but also use the Esri base as well to make sure all the data was true and correct, geographically correct, spatially correct, and everything. This allowed us to sort of make sure that there were no clashes on site. Everything fell into place correctly. We were also challenged a lot on the augmented reality, where we really wanted to try and make augmented reality work. We also had a lot of virtual reality stuff in there, so we were actually in the client's offices, sort of showcasing what was going on. So I suppose ultimately, a couple of take-home messages. You know, Jack's made my life a little bit easier with the partnerships and bringing together Autodesk and Esri. He has also made it a lot more interesting because of the amount of data that can now flow between those two, I suppose, scenarios, two distinct silos. It's making projects more valuable. It's making project decisions a lot easier, and giving our clients a lot more information. Data management is key. You know, really looking after your data, making sure it's structured, it's managed, data integrity is kept intact. And the benefits, you know, what's in it for me? But being on the consulting side of things, you know, we don't just adopt every single mandate that's out there. We need to understand what's in it for us. We need to make sure that our efficiencies, our productivity, and our value to the clients is kept intact. Short and sweet. So that's me. Thank you very much.